They have made it illegal for trans people to do any sort of performance. Well, they're trying to anyway. Make it illegal for trans people to do any sort of performance whatsoever. This doesn't have anything to do with drag. Drag shows are the collateral damage. They're caught in the crossfire here. In reality, what this is all about is this is about pushing trans people out of public life. Welcome in, everybody. So, last night, or at some point yesterday, I think it happened last night, a bill was introduced in the Nebraska Legislature that purports itself to be a ban on minors attending drag shows. Hello, Danny. So that's what it claims to be, and in a sense, it will ban minors from drag shows. It does accomplish that, but it actually does a whole lot more than that. A lot of really bad stuff. So we're gonna get into that. I got an article pulled up from the Nebraska Examiner, and we're going to go over that as usual. However, I also have the actual text for the bill, the introduced text for LB 371, the bill in question. And the reason is because this article, it's a pretty good article, but it doesn't really get into, not very much anyway, it doesn't get into the most insidious part of this bill, which is that essentially this is going to make it impossible for any trans person to do any sort of performance in the state of Nebraska if it gets approved. So, but we're going to start off with this article. It's from Nebraska Examiner, written by Paul Hamill. Title: ACLU condemns proposed drag show ban as part of national effort to push LGBTQ plus people out of public life. Ain't that the truth? A bill introduced Thursday in the Nebraska legislature to block minors from attending drag shows was condemned as part of the culture war against the LGBTQ plus community. We're not doing guests today. Let's call this what it is. This is a quote from the ACLU. Let's call this what it is: an unconstitutional censorship attempt rooted in a coordinated national effort to push LGBTQ plus people out of public life, said Jane Siu. I'm probably saying that wrong. Thank you for the roses, Sandberg. Oh my lord, thank you so much. I'm very grateful. I love that. The Legal and Policy Council for the ACLU of Nebraska. That's who Jane Siu is. Legislative Bill 371, introduced by State Senator Dave Merman of Glenville, and 8 other senators, would bar persons under 19 years of age from attending a drag show and block those under 21 from attending such shows where alcohol is served. I wonder if we can see the co-sponsors on here. Oh, yes, we can. We're going to be naming and shaming those co-sponsors, that's for sure. Why wouldn't the world want to see more of you people? It's an odd way to phrase it. So yeah, the bill establishes a fine of $10,000 for the establishment that hosts a show if a minor is found to be at a drag show. And if an adult allows a minor to attend, whatever that means, it would also result in a $1,000 fine, and it would be a misdemeanor charge. The Nebraska proposal comes after similar bills banning minors from attending drag shows have been introduced in several states, including Missouri, Arizona, and Texas. Drag shows, this is important, drag shows feature performers singing and dancing in elaborate costumes and makeup impersonating men or women. That's not exactly how I would put it, but yeah, I mean, that's essentially it. It's not an inherently sexual thing. There are some risque burlesque types. There's some there's some drag shows where there's nudity involved and stuff, but for the most part, it's not that. It's just a cool, fun, gender performance thing. While proponents maintain that it's harmless fun entertainment, critics say such shows are inappropriate for minors, involving perverted and hypersexualized adults trying to sexualize young people. So whenever I read a sentence like this, it makes me just think whoever is making this argument hasn't been to very many drag shows, because sexually, R-rated drag shows aren't even that common. It's mostly PG-13 for the most part. Quit talking the rights you shouldn't have. I don't understand that. Could you please explain that to me? Controversy and protests have spread across the country with many shows featuring drag queens canceled in recent months. And that includes here in Nebraska. In Lincoln, Nebraska, there was a fundraiser of some kind at a coffee shop that was going to feature an all-ages drag show, and they had to cancel it because of violent threats. And just a month or two ago, there was one weekend where there were 2 separate armed terrorist attacks that were confirmed, and that they were done because of drag shows. If I don't have rights, does that mean you don't either? So if I can't have a right, you shouldn't? I don't really know what you're asking. Everybody should have the same rights. That's what I think personally. What do you think about that issue? Enlighten us. A shooting at a drag show at a Colorado Springs lounge in November left 5 dead and 17 wounded. One story time in California featuring drag performers was disrupted by the far-right Proud Boys group in July. Shortly after LB 371 was introduced, Omaha Senator Megan Hunt, the first openly LGBTQ candidate elected to the state legislature, filed a motion to kill the bill. She did. In fact, she filed a priority motion. She's only allowed to have a certain amount of priority movements each year. So she is actually putting herself on the line, using her resources to fight this bill. So yeah, God bless Senator Megan Hunt. Way to go. You're a woman that isn't cisgendered, so the conservatives think it's okay to belittle you. Yeah, that's true, and I think it goes even further than that. I think they see trans women especially as a threat to masculinity. Their sense of masculinity is extremely fragile, and so they are lashing out because they feel threatened by the existence of trans women. Shortly after, we already did that. The ACLU of Nebraska, in a press release, said LB 371 would be a violation of free speech. Drag is a visual expression and creative celebration of LGBTQ plus culture, Sue said. It has been a part of the creative community for centuries, and this bill would have far-reaching implications on the historical tradition of artistic freedom, which is the truth. Now, this article doesn't really get into what's particularly insidious and dangerous about this bill, which is why we're going to look at the text of the bill in a minute, because this is mostly addressing this bill as a ban on minors attending drag. So this would ban minors from attending drag shows, but it's also going to make it basically impossible for anybody who is gender nonconforming to do any sort of performance in Nebraska where minors may or may not be present. So if what I'm doing right now, I am performing, okay? If I were in Nebraska and I were doing this and there was a minor in the room and this bill had passed, that would be illegal. I would be committing a misdemeanor. Because this doesn't actually ban drag. What this does is it bans anybody who is gender non-conforming from doing a performance in the presence of minors. I literally, when I was younger, I went to drag shows. Turned out fine, right? So here, let's take a look at the bill. So we're going to read the text so we can establish what I just said, the claim that I just made. But first, like I said, I wanted to mention the sponsors. So these are the assholes who have decided to put their names on this thing and really go out there and say, hey, we're pushing for this. They are senators, Merman, Albrecht, Brewer, Clements, Erdman, Holleran, Haldcroft, Kayuth, I don't know who that is, and Lippincott. So some new names, some familiar names if you follow Nebraska politics. Merman is, I believe Merman's new, and I believe he's also very extremely rabidly conservative. I do not support Biden. I have no idea why you would say that. I don't support Biden at all. I'm an anarchist. I'm a leftist, and Biden is basically the opposite of both of those things. How about if you don't want your kid at a drag show, you just don't take them to one? Precisely. But this isn't about drag shows. This is about attacking the trans community. So we're going to talk about that. If conservatives were really concerned about us, then they would just stop the hate. Yeah, but they're not concerned about us. They just want to hurt us. And this bill is specifically designed to hurt trans people. We're going to get into it exactly how. So we're reading the actual text that has been introduced for the law. For purposes of this section, drag show means a performance which, so the following is going to define drag show under the law. The main aspect of the performance is a performer which exhibits a gender identity that is different than the performer's gender assigned at birth, using clothing, makeup, or other physical markers. So let me read that again. A performer which exhibits a gender identity that is different than the performer's gender assigned at birth, using clothing, makeup, or other physical markers. What did they just describe? They just described every single trans person. So every single trans person, every single gender non-conforming person that engages in the following actions will be considered to be engaging in a drag show. Which is the performer sings, lip syncs, dances, or otherwise performs before an audience for entertainment. So like I'm doing right now. I am not a drag queen, right? Most drag queen are men, gay men, or bisexual men, or just men, generally speaking. That's what a drag queen is. That's not what I am. I'm a transgender woman. But if I stand up on the corner, if this law passes and I go up to the corner and I start singing and there happens to be kids in that corner, I'm committing a misdemeanor. They have made it illegal for trans people to do any sort of performance. Well, they're trying to anyway. Make it illegal for trans people to do any sort of performance whatsoever. This doesn't have anything to do with drag. Drag shows are the collateral damage. They're caught in the crossfire here. In reality, what this is all about is this is about pushing trans people out of public life and making it so that we can't perform at all. If this bill passes and you're trans and you do a stand-up comedy performance, if there's minors there, illegal. If you are in a band, if you play drums in a rock band and you play a show, you hit the drums with your sticks, and there happens to be kids in the audience, you've committed a crime. The establishment that is holding the event has committed a crime. All that sort of thing. So it's absolutely insane. None of this has anything to do with protecting children. It barely even has anything to do with drag, despite the fact that it actually bans drag, because the whole point of this is to push trans people out of public life. So that's really all I wanted to go over with you guys. They're trying to make it illegal for trans people to exist. This is step one. This is just the first anti-trans bill that was introduced this year in Nebraska. There are certain to be more. I love you guys. Have a good one.